Hey everybody, my name is KellieBox, and this is my Identity Box presentation for Social Work 351. The purpose of this project is to explore the different parts of my social identity, the pieces of who I am that shape how I see the world and how the world sees me. In this presentation, I'll share the images I've placed on the outside of my box, which represent how others tend to view me based on stereotypes and assumptions. Then I'll show the items inside my box, which represent how I see myself and the identities that are the most meaningful to me. My goal is to reflect on the social categories that influence my life, such as my gender, my family role, my social class, my spirituality, and my identity as a first generation non traditional college student. On the outside of my box, the first thing that you can see is the image that I included that says bless your heart. This represents the stereotype people often place on Southern white women. When people hear my accent or learn I'm from Alabama, they sometimes assume I'm sweet, traditional, polite, or even a little simple. It's a phrase that carries a lot of assumptions about me and my personality, my values, and the lifestyle. This image shows how people often categorize me before they actually know anything about my real experiences or my personal beliefs. They just see that I'm from Alabama, I'm a white young lady, well, in my 30s, and I must be from a rural area. So that must mean that I'm uneducated. So they simply just say, oh, bless your heart. The next image that you can see on my box on the outside, it says, you're nothing but a blue collar stiff. I chose this because people often make assumptions about my social class based on my background, the jobs I've worked, and even my husband's career as a mechanic. This tends to cause a lot of skepticism instead of optimism when it really comes to knowing who I am. There's a stereotype that people from working class families are less educated, have fewer opportunities, or don't have the same level of social mobility as others, which sometimes can be true, but oftentimes not true. Even though this stereotype doesn't reflect my actual abilities or my goals that I'm striving for, it's something I've felt from the way people talk to me or the expectations that they place on me. The image represents the assumptions people make about my financial situation, my education, and my future. Before they really know anything about my determination, my work ethic, or what I'm striving for, or the fact that I'm a first generation college student working hard to change my path, really sets the tone for how people view me from the outside looking in. This next image on my box really represents how others see me as the basic millennial mom coming from my generation. Um, the stereotype that they can see is that when people see a woman in their 30s or 34, 35 like me, they assume that I'm just wearing leggings, I've got an expensive coffee in my hand, which is totally not true, a smartwatch, I don't even own one of those, or even just the way I carry myself. They often assume that I fit into this little box or this category. The stereotype suggests that I'm always juggling my kids, my errands, and schedules, and then I spend my free time at Target, Starbucks, or running around in an SUV. It also ties into assumptions about privilege, like the idea that I have this extra time or money to spend on myself, which is totally not true. Even though some parts of the stereotype might overlap in my real life, it doesn't capture the full picture of my responsibilities or the challenges that I have had to face on a daily basis. This image shows how people make quick judgments about my age, my gender, and my lifestyle before they even know my actual story. So let's take a look at what's on the inside of my box now, the identities I hold within myself. Now that I've shown the outside of my box and the stereotypes people often place on me, this slide represents the inside of my box, the identities that truly define who I am or what I see myself as. Inside my box, I included the 4 items that each represent a different part of my social identity. I have a handmade Mother's Day card for my son, Matthew, my youngest son. which reflects my identity as a mama of 3 boys. Well, actually, we have 5 kids if you include my husband's kids as well, which we do include those kids as well. I included a dream catcher, which represents my spirituality, my hope, and the healing that I've done and that I've had to do throughout my life. I added my UA pin, which symbolizes my identity as a first-generation, non-traditional college student that's attending school online and coming back to school after being away several years. And also, finally, I included my substitute teacher lanyard, which represents my role that I play in the school system and my working class background. These items together show the parts of myself that others don't always get to see. The identities that shape my values, my goals, and the way I move throughout the world and my life as a whole. So in slide 6, this slide shows my dream catcher, which is one of the items inside my box that is a little worn and it's missing the center and it's pretty messed up looking, but it has a few beads missing at the bottom. But that's actually why I chose this dream catcher. The condition of the dream catcher reflects the part of my identity that isn't perfect or polished, the part of me that has been through a lot of challenges, loss, and a lot of healing. For me, the dream catcher represents my spiritual identity and the way I hold on to hope even when there feels like there's no hope, even when things feel broken or incomplete. The missing pieces remind me that healing isn't always a neat or pretty or a shiny thing, but it's still meaningful to me in a lot of different ways. This item, it symbolizes resilience and the belief that I can keep moving forward even in times of trouble or challenge for me. And when a lot of my life has been difficult, it symbolizes hope for me. It represents the inner strength I carry with me and the spiritual side of my identity that guides how I cope, how I grow, and how I see the world around me. The next slide, slide 7, this shows my substitute teacher lanyard, which I handmade the little badge on the inside of it. But it's another item that I placed inside my box. The lanyard represents my identity within the school system. I do substitute for the Tulsa County school system when I have a chance to. And it represents my role that's in the community that's working as a substitute teacher. It puts me in a helping profession where I can support the students and also be around my own kids in school and learn more about what they've got going on and how I can help out more with them and their friends. It helps to build relationships, and it also helps the classrooms that I in run smoothly, and it helps the teachers that are needed a day off and they need their own time or courses that they can't be at school for. And so by being a substitute, this really helps to fill in that gap, and I feel like I'm playing a part. It also reflects my social class identity because subbing's a working class job that requires a lot of flexibility, patience, and a lot of emotional labor. I get really attached to the kids that I'm around also. People sometimes overlook the importance of this role as a substitute, but for me, it's really a meaningful part of who I am. The lanyard also represents how I juggle multiple identities at once, being a mom, being a student, and being somebody who works in education as much as I can. It shows how I'm trying to stay committed to helping others and how happy it makes me feel, or the pride it makes me feel being a part of the school community as a whole. Next up on the slide, slide 8, this slide shows my UA pin that says Roll Tide on it. I included this item in the slide inside my box because it represents my identity as a student at the University of Alabama. It's something that I've always imagined that I could do, but didn't know if I'd have the opportunity to be able to do it, even though I grew up just 8 miles down the road from UA. But it's something that's a lot deeper for me as well. My identity as a first-generation, non-traditional college student attending school online is very important to me. My family, they didn't graduate from a 4-year education. My mom, she has a technical degree for cosmetology, but on my dad's side, which I really wasn't close to him anyway. He didn't go to college, and nobody else really did either. Um, no one in my family has taken the path before me, so being at UA is a big part of who I am. It represents how I'm trying to break the generational curses and cycles, creating the new opportunities for myself and also my kids, and proving to myself that I belong somewhere inside of higher education. The pen also reflects my journey as an adult student who's balancing school, work, and motherhood as a whole, which can be very challenging at times. It symbolizes how I have this determination, this pride, and this belief that it's never really too late to pursue your goals. For me, this pen isn't just a school spirit. It's a reminder of how far I've come and the future that I'm really working hard to have. Slide number 9 is one of the most important representations of who I am and my identity. That's inside of my box. It's a handmade Mother's Day card from my youngest son. I chose this because being a mama is the core of my identity. It shapes every part of my life, how I make decisions, how I show up for other people, and how I move throughout the world. This card represents my gender identity as a woman, my family role as a mom, and even my age and stage of life. As a parent raising kids while going back to school, it also reflects the emotional labor, the responsibility, and the love that comes from being a mother. Things that people don't always see from the outside. When I look at this card, it reminded me of why I push myself and why I work so hard and why I'm determined to finish my degree. My children are my motivation, my grounding, and my purpose as a whole. This card symbolizes my identity that influences every other part of who I am and who I'm striving to be. The last slide, slide number 10, is a reflection on the intersectionality and my final reflection of my box as a whole. It represents my identities, how they overlap, how they don't exist separately. So, in closing the presentation, I want to talk about the intersectionality and how all these identities come together in my life. I'm not just a woman or a mother or a working class student. I'm all of those things at the same time. Each identity affects the other and shapes the way I experience the world as a whole. Being a mother influences how I approach school and work. Being a first-generation non-traditional college student affects how confident I feel in my academic spaces, or sometimes how confident I don't feel. My working class background shapes the opportunities I've had and the ones I'm still fighting for to be able to achieve for the future. And my spirituality helps me cope with the challenges and to try to stay grounded in my faith and the overall hope that I have. The identities don't exist separately. They overlap, they interact, and they create a unique perspective that is completely my own and for my own to create. The projects help me reflect on the differences between how often others see me from the outside and who I truly am on the inside. It reminded me that identity is complex, it's layered, and deeply personal. And I really want to thank you for taking the time to learn more about my identity box and the parts of myself that matter the most to me and how others may see me or perceive me from the outside.